Welcome, fellow plebs. My name is Sean, and this is
Tribunus Plebis.
And hello, everybody. Welcome back. Please, as we start this off, take a second to like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, please. It really helps. It'll help the show grow, and I would very much appreciate it. Okay, so before we even get going on this episode, I want to say that I am not a Teamster, and I say that because I'm going to talk about Sean O'Brien's recent speech at the RNC. And at the end of the day, the various members of the Teamsters Union, they are the ones who will have to decide and have a little come to Jesus moment, a little come to Hoffa moment, and I guess figure this thing out and what to do about it, right? They can be in support of it, they can dislike it, but it's really up to them. The ultimate decision lies with the rank and file Teamsters, not with me, not with some guy on the internet, you know, yelling into a mic and a camera. All that said, get rid of that for a second. All that said, let's talk about Sean O'Brien speaking at the Republican National Convention. Now, first off, I am on the record here in the past, even last episode, talking about this actual event, right? It was talking about Sean O'Brien going to the RNC. Now, I'm on the record as saying that I don't think it should be discounted entirely, the idea of it. You know, I think that the Teamster leader, we should at least keep it open that they talk at something like the RNC or at similar meetings, rallies, whatever, halls. You know, there is some level of veracity in the idea that you should go out, especially unions, should go out and talk to people who don't necessarily agree with them right away on its face. But I also said that labor leaders need to be careful about what they say and how they say it. I think that's incredibly important. In my view, the only way it makes sense for the president of the Teamsters to go to a place like the Republican National Convention or, you know, the leader of any union or any labor related organizations, is that leader has to walk onto that stage, on the RNC stage, on national television in front of all these very powerful people, these very wealthy people, and they need to step to that microphone confidently. They need to make arguments. They need to make arguments for a strong militant union to rhetorically rip apart all of the wealthy, elite, ultra-rich corporate leadership, you know, millionaires and billionaires and the elite capitalists who control all the corporations and the politicians in this country. They need to wreck them. Like, they need to verbally wreck them. They need to tear up the corporate welfare structure. They need to just drag it across that stage. They need to talk about corporate-friendly laws, how they're anti-worker, anti-working class, anti-labor movement. They need to, like, you know, just eviscerate and shred the anti-union, union-busting scumbags, right? The politicians, the corporate owners out there, the business owners. They need to directly attack people like Trump, sitting senators, Congress people, J.D. Vance, the awful vice presidential pick, and anyone else there who's running for office, and just generally be belligerent on that stage, in front of that microphone, in front of those cameras, in front of the nation. That whole thing should also include brutally assassinating the character of every wealthy, powerful person in that audience and every single person who supports them at home. Well, I won't go too far. I was going to say everybody who supports them at home, but those are the people that you're trying to reach, are the people at home, right? They're not all totally far gone. You need to just loudly, visibly, and unapologetically criticize every, dirtbag, anti-labor, anti-working class, anti-immigrant, anti-humanity, every goofball dork who is in that room, every loser politician like Donald Trump, you need to just eviscerate them. The only way that it makes sense to talk to people like this, to get on a stage like that, is to do so in a way which leads you to being dragged off of that stage with like a vaudevillian hook. And, while suit-bedecked RNC goobers are unplugging your microphone and just taking hatchets to the PA system to, make it stop. That's how it has to end. You have to walk on that stage, and you need to understand that you're going out there one time, a single time, because they will never have you back, and you have to burn that bridge, and you have to be okay setting fire to it. And this is not what Sean O'Brien did. Sean O'Brien pulled some scab shit, pure scab stuff on that stage. The president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, he walked onto that RNC stage and he proceeded to thank Trump, praise Trump, said that he was a tough SOB, and he supported and praised various openly anti-union congressmen, and then straight up spent the next, I don't know, however many minutes, like 10, 12 minutes, something like that, betraying the rank and file worker. Sean O'Brien sold out, and he scabbed on that stage in front of the entire country. Union leaders should not be praising Trump. They should not be praising the Republicans. Donald Trump actively worked to harm labor as president, and he's spent his entire business career being anti-union, opposing unions, opposing union work in his construction sites. Trump himself is dead set against organized labor, and so is the Republican Party at large. It's literally in the like the core of the party. It's in every talking point that they have. Now, O'Brien's speech in and of itself was pretty milquetoast. It was pretty run-of-the-mill, maybe even good in some locations. Like if it's like at a VFW hall, it would have been fine. In fact, it's the kind of speech you'd expect like a labor leader to make at, any random Teamster meeting, any random labor rally, like I say, VFW hall, anything like that. It was just sort of a good but general labor speech, right? The bad part is about where it was and how it was received. It was just the sort of normal talking points that you'd hear anywhere else. He did talk about some corporate nonsense, like oligarchy, union busting, the power of labor, in general senses. He talked about these things, a few specifics here and there, but he even pretty forcefully, thankfully, attacked the Chamber of Commerce, which was nice to hear because that is a horrible organization. But like I said, it was mostly just pretty common talking points and no real fire, no bridge burning behind them. And all those last few things, that's really the problem that I have with this speech. It was normal. A normal mainstream union speech. And like I said, like it's a good VFW speech, or it's a good, like a random, worker rally somewhere. But it was an absolutely horrific speech to give to like a mass of people, a group of people, a self-selected group of people who are diametrically opposed to what Sean O'Brien was there to discuss. They're absolutely opposed to organized labor. They're opposed to unions. And if Sean O'Brien didn't end that speech being tackled and dragged off that stage, for basically just taking a flamethrower to the dignity of like your basic Republican politician and your basic wealthy dork ass dude who's sitting in that audience, if he made it through that speech with that was so conventional and unoffensive that Donald Trump was clapping and smiling as it went, and clapping as he wrapped it up, then he's screwed up bad. He's either screwed up or he's entirely complicit with some seriously scabby behavior. And I'm leaning towards the bad side of those arguments. And the reason why is because when O'Brien goes out there and does something like that, when he gives a speech like that in a place like this to people like those, when the Teamsters and even more broadly the labor movement are represented on that RNC stage, and they, like the spokesman for those two things, for the labor movement and for the Teamsters, if they aren't physically dragged off of that stage and thrown bodily from that building, then all that remains are big headlines, right, across every conservative paper and every conservative website that exists. And they're going to read something like, O'Brien and the Teamsters basically endorsed Trump. They're going to say, I think O'Brien said in regards to Trump that he was a tough son of a bitch or something like that. That's what those headlines are saying. Teamster President Sean O'Brien says that Donald Trump is a tough son of a bitch during, speech at the RNC. And that's the headline. And that vision of O'Brien on that stage, getting applause from Donald Trump and the other right-wing goons, that's the thing that will be remembered. That will be viewed, at least, by the right wing as the endorsement. Sean O'Brien endorsed Donald Trump, even if he didn't. Right? That's why the optics are so good. That's why you have to go in there with that flamethrower, burning a bridge as they drag you out. Now, I guess O'Brien himself and his supporters, there's a lot of other people out there who support him in this. They are putting the best spin on it that they can by basically saying that they support talking to union members or members of the working class or potential union members and, so on. And that this is a great way of reaching out. They would argue something like, it doesn't... Sorry about that. They would argue that something like this doesn't matter if the people you're talking to are, registered Republicans or libertarians or Democrats, or are just generally independent and conservative, because that's, really who he's talking to here are conservatives of all ilks. They view this as it was a chance for labor labor leaders, a union leader, to talk directly to the sort of people who vote Republican for, ridiculous culture war nonsense, rather than issues that truly affect them. And they view these people as gettable, that if you can convince them, I don't know, gay people aren't really coming for your children, you should actually maybe join a union, work next to a gay guy and realize that they're normal people, something like that. But I disagree with this. I just disagree with that whole premise. The RNC crowd, it's not full of where the heck? Oh no. Yes, gotta fix it. Sorry about that. That was embarrassing. My mouse stopped working. What was I going to say? Oh, the crowd. The crowd he was talking to were not independent plumbers who worked for a company. They weren't. The crowd wasn't full of Amazon warehouse workers or Amazon drivers or truck drivers, right? The crowd was full of Amazon warehouse owners, the owners of companies that Amazon drivers work for. It's full of wealthy plumbers who hire other plumbers, right? Who own like a small plumbing business, a medium-sized plumbing business, large ones. These are all wealthy people. They're all connected people. They're all, political Republicans. It's really it's the corporate ownership class, not cement pourers, right? These aren't house framers. These are people who are wealthy business owners. And, to be honest here, there's a lot of, Christian nationalist, like insurrectionists, anti-trans bigots, just a lot of people who are either just politically and financially completely opposed to unions, or they're just people whose brains have melted into like warm sour cream and it's just sloshing around in their skulls. And every time you say, oh my God, look, there's a trans person, they get scared and hide, right? These are the people that you're talking to. And if the Teamsters really saw some sort of chance here, like an opportunity to maybe talk to some people directly, maybe like the best thing that they could have done, if they felt like they just had to go to this convention, is to set up outside. Set up outside on a little stage or under a little tent and speak from there. Speak to people directly. You're probably more likely to walk into a regular worker there, just, milling around, probably buying a Trump flag or something, but at least they'd be like a ground level worker, and it wouldn't be some C-suite executive dork in there who's like makes a 6-7 figure salary specifically to make sure that they never unionize, right? You want to talk to the workers. Or maybe you could counter program it on YouTube, or maybe go on a network that's either not covering the RNC, or maybe, get a spot directly after it, or directly before it, or the next day when everybody's talking about it. Now, I think that there are some people out there who will view what I'm saying here as short-sighted or overly critical. And we have to at least consider that, right? I guess that they would say that, and maybe correctly, that unions and labor shouldn't be divided by political lines like this, by political allegiance. And I kind of agree with this when we're talking about, Gus or Janet down the street who, work in the paper mill or the steel factory or the Amazon warehouse, right? Go talk to them. Talk to them about, even if they just disagree to their core with you, just talk to them. Be nice. Be a normal person. You know, tell them benefits that you think exist with unions. And, you know, talk to them, even if they're just just your run-of-the-mill Republican voter who disagrees with you. It's fine. But I disagree with talking with wealthy, conspiracy-addled, nationalist, bigoted losers who are the ownership class and who are there to mindlessly worship at a personality cult and hold up signs with messages like mass deportation now, and with signs that say, make America great again, make America strong again, make America, or I was going to say make America white again, but I don't know if they had that at the RNC. But they aren't far from it, right? Mass deportation now. They're not talking about people who look like me. Those people, they are not reachable. Now, the Republican Party, and a lot of this, I guess this criticism can be directed to Democrats as well, but right now we're talking about the RNC, so that's what I'm focusing on. The Republican Party is dead set on destroying unions. The labor movement, more broadly, is in their crosshairs. And the working class in general is being oppressed. Destroying organized labor, destroying the labor movement it's quite literally part of their plan moving forward, regardless of what they say. I'll hopefully have an episode talking about how Project 2025 affects unions and the labor movement, coming up soon. Hopefully before I go on vacation. But the Republicans are anti-women, anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant, anti-union, and anti-working class. And all of those positions are baked into their bones. It's in their core DNA. This will not change because Sean O'Brien gave a milquetoast speech on that stage. It will not change because of that. And after, I should mention this before we go on, after the RNC, O'Brien tweeted out an article by anti-union Josh Hawley, who spent a portion of that article by bashing our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. And O'Brien said that he agreed with that story 100%. So not only did Sean O'Brien betray his union broadly, but more specifically, he betrayed his LGBTQ members on, a more precise level. And I cannot imagine that those people, woke up the next morning and went to work and felt as connected to the Teamsters Union as they did before that happened. Now, at best, the best possible spin I can put on that, I think, is that this was just some boomer-ass shenanigans for which O'Brien should apologize and be maybe censored by the union, right? That's the best possible outcome, that he just says, you know what, I screwed up, I didn't read it well enough, I'm an old goofy-ass dude, and I messed up, I'm sorry. But at worst, it's an attempt by O'Brien and maybe some other portion of leadership, possibly egged on by some sort of political goon or donor class puppet master, to foment some sort of culture war, which would be internal in the Teamsters or possibly internal within the labor movement more broadly, right? They could have been pushed in this direction on purpose. But either way, like, both of those things are bad, and whichever it is, or whichever gradation of those two things it is a betrayal on multiple levels. And you know what, I guess the saddest part of this, I think, is that when you look at the direct result of the speech in this, I'll set aside for at least this one moment the anti-LGBTQ article for a second, but the result of the speech is that the wealthy donor class, ownership class Republicans, right, in the audience, they were not moved by the speech. The, I guess, tepid reception in and of itself is pretty damning, and it highlights O'Brien's betrayal of the rank and file, but it gets even worse when you actually listen to the speech and what people actually cheered about and what they didn't. They applauded some general working class talk, like, yeah, you know, workers need to, you know, be powerful, make more money. But they were mostly silent when O'Brien hit the few points which truly challenged Republican orthodoxy. And they cheered again when Bryan made overtures toward things like foreign adversaries and strongly hinted at American nationalism and his blatant blathering about American exceptionalism. And when you're a union leader and the donor class you're talking to cheers when you praise Trump, it gets quiet when you dump on the wealthy, and it cheers again when you praise people like Hawley. And then it gets dead quiet when you actually hit some real labor organizing talking points. The crowd is pretty much letting you know how badly this is going. And if you were really attempting to make some sort of honest reaching out, it didn't work. They were not reaching out to take your hand. When you're speaking to the ownership and donor class and the political elite, you're talking to an audience full of people who not only have no interest in what you're trying to sell them, but they're openly and savagely opposed to it. Many of them are literally being paid to make sure that what you want to happen does not happen. These people, the absolute ghouls who they are, they oppose worker rights and worker organizing because they profit from workers not having rights. And they profit from workers not being organized, from destroying the environment, and they profit from cheap, unorganized labor. So at best, O'Brien's appearance at the RNC was entirely unproductive. That's at best. That's the absolute highest grade that we can give this when we review it. It was unproductive. And that's not good. That's like the best you can say is that it didn't achieve anything. That's the best we can say. But more realistically, and probably more truthfully, more factually, that speech actively harmed the labor movement, and it actively harmed the Teamsters. And another sad part of this is that a lot of the people who listen to this speech, and I'm talking now not about like that capitalist ownership class, that elite political, like the machine that was in that audience in the building at the RNC, or even like the talking heads and the pundits and the other, you know, wealthy, whatever, people at home. I'm talking about that, you know, that Gus and Janet or whatever watching, who listened at home or are seeing clips on the internet. And by the way, the whole clips thing is a whole other issue. I'm not going to get too far into that, but, you know, talking about how O'Brien, you know, he said Trump is a tough SOB, and how thankful he was that Trump invited him and let him speak and everything. Like the massive corporate and conservative and even like the independent media machines who are bent on certain political goals are clipping this whole thing up and just sending out things that sound awesome to Republican voters, right? And not awesome like to support O'Brien. They're clipping out and sending out things where O'Brien is saying how good the Republicans are, right? He's feeding them endless endorsements to play over and over again. So sorry about that. And so we are seeing with these clips organizations which are entirely devoted to destroying unions or getting Trump elected. We're just seeing them, play these clips on endless loops to people who are committed to watching those news sites, right? When you watch Fox News, you're just a Fox News viewer. They're playing clips around the clock of O'Brien saying how good Trump is, how good the Republicans are. But anyways, I got a little sidetracked there, but the people at home listening, right, the Gus and the Janet, on their couch listening to, maybe Fox News as they cover this thing, as they watch, before it even started, they agreed with Trump and the Republicans, right? They're conservative people. And reaching out to these folks isn't wrong, but doing it this way certainly is. It's the wrong way to do it. And like I said, the crowd responded negatively to labor talking points, and they cheered when O'Brien fear-mongered about Asia and praised Trump. Gus and Janet ingested this. They watched it, and they understood it as it is, as it was. But that people cheered when Asia was framed as a dangerous place. And they saw people cheer when O'Brien said that Trump was awesome. And when it fell flat, when O'Brien was saying more union-friendly talking points and nobody said anything, that's a negative response. It just washed over them like water. The supposed outreach was a failure. It was, to be honest, it was disloyal, and it was treacherous, and it should be a fatal career move for Sean O'Brien. This was a betrayal of the Teamsters, a union which counts, I believe it's about 1.5 million active workers and another 500,000 retirees in the USA and Canada. So 2 million people on its rolls. And it was a betrayal. It was a flat out betrayal of those 2 million members. But that betrayal isn't like universal on a person by person level. After all, some Teamsters are in fact Republicans, and they are in fact conservative, and they entirely support this speech and people like Trump. I don't know what percent it is, but it's not a tiny percent. There are a significant amount of them. But these like individual level betrayals aren't really the core issue here. Not to me. This is the breach of trust and the perfidy here. It goes a lot deeper than that. Sean O'Brien did indeed betray the rank and file, but that's almost like downstream from the real Judas kiss here, which is his selling out of the labor movement itself. It was a stabbing in the back of the working class. In my opinion, the Teamsters out there right now are forced with a choice of as they move forward. Should they remove this man from his office, from his position next election, or maybe even sooner if possible? I'm not sure what the bylaws are. Oh, and by the way, where the hell is the Teamsters Reform Caucus right now, right? Where are they? This is their guy. They should be keeping this guy in check. So, Reform Caucus members, this is a reminder, I guess, that this is a continuation of what you signed up for what you did. The progressive repair of your union. It's your job to get to work on fixing this. not to blindly support a man who made such a drastically and dramatically horrific decision that resulted in a PR disaster like this. And if the existing Reform Caucus, the Teamsters United, if they aren't willing to do it, then organize another one. Throw them out. Because, as I assume you all know, I hope you all know, for the workers to be free, they must be in control of the union. The workers need to control the union. It's extremely important, right? Democratic from the bottom up. So if O'Brien went to the RNC on your bidding and you're okay with it, I mean, I guess that's it, right? That's fine. And if he spoke the words that you co-sign and he spoke to people that you think he should speak with, and if he praised people that you think are worthy to be praised, then so be it. That's your choice. It's your union. Go for it. But if he went there against your collective wills, against your collective judgment, and he spoke to people who want to destroy your union, and he praised monsters, and he spoke words that you disagree with as he was then if he did all that, then he is not representing you. He is standing alone above you, leading you, rather than being told where to go and what to do. In short, he no longer represents the wishes of the members of his union. Workers are not friends with bosses. We all understand that, I think. But union members should not be friends with their president. They shouldn't, just like when jobs tell you we're family, they are not. When Teamster leadership, when union leadership tells us we are family, we are not. They're there to serve a purpose that we give to them to represent us and to represent what we want as workers. And if they aren't doing what you wish, and that's up to you to decide, it's time to, censor or remove them. Don't let the leadership that the reformers put into power become ossified. Don't let them become the status quo. Don't let them become that which you spent years organizing against and then successfully defeating. And you know what? I guess that's it. That's where we'll end it. I had a couple other things, but you know what? They feel unimportant with that final thought there. The ball's in your court, I guess. You've heard my views. Do with it what you will. Now, if you're still here, if you're still watching or listening, I do want to note that we have, first, like and subscribe. That would be awesome. But we also have some merch. I'm wearing one of my shirts here. I think it looks pretty good. They're very comfortable. You could have seen that if you were on YouTube. Also, join our YouTube channel. I like doing the videos. I feel a little bit more free to not edit these things to death and just to get them out and publish them. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you, listeners. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I love you all.